Welcome to Let's Thrive Postpartum.
Hi, and welcome back to Let's Thrive Postpartum. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Ashley.
Today, we are really excited for you all to meet Kelly Hubbell. So this is one of those great conversations of a mom who realized there was a huge need, and she's created a company and a way to help moms understand their invisible workload. I want to tell you a little bit about her before we jump in. So Kelly's a mom of three, and she founded Sage Haus. It's a platform dedicated to helping busy parents reclaim their time and energy by building their village and outsourcing their mental load. She is focused on ensuring moms at any budget get the support they deserve so they can feel present in everything they do, whether that's spending time with their families, growing their careers, or pursuing personal passion. So she found Sage Haus to share her journey of creating a reliable support system, offering practical advice for fellow moms who want to find a more equitable division of labor and beyond the outdated "I'm going to do it all" narrative. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. I think she's going to tell us about, kind of diving in. And Kelly, this is stuff we've talked about before on here, but this is kind of the action of like what you can do about some of these like frustrations and challenges. And so thinking about the invisible load that many women and parents carry, how to audit your time. And she has this wonderful quiz on her website that you go through and see like, how is your time actually being spent when it comes to all the household and family management tasks, and how to ask for help and kind of hire your village and outsource some of those things. But I think interwoven throughout a lot of there is just information on how to communicate with your partner, how to ask for help, how to kind of get to the place where you're like, I think I want things to feel and like be a little bit different. And she has come up with a solution for it. So I think it was so fun. I can't wait.
Well, let's meet Kelly.
Welcome, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining Kelly, the other Kelly, and I today. We're so excited to hear more about you, your kind of personal experience, your business. And I think it's going to be really wonderful for all of our moms out there. So to get us started, would you mind, I guess, telling us a little bit about yourself, what Sage Haus is, why it was created, and kind of what your mission is?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm Kelly. I'm a mom of three kiddos born within a 4-year time frame. So I've got a 5-year-old, 4-year-old, and almost 2-year-old. We live in Portland, Oregon, and my husband of 8 years is an entrepreneur, owns his own business. We've been in Portland very intentionally to raise our family and start our businesses. We met in the Bay Area before this, so we've sort of worked our way up the West Coast. But more about me, I recently left a decade-long career in software sales. So that was my full-time job for a long time. And I just recently went all in on Sage Haus about 4 or 5 months ago. And up until then, it was really just like a passion project or a side hustle. And now I'm all in. So the reason is because I am just so passionate about helping busy parents, typically moms, to lighten the mental load and help them to find and hire their village and implement repeatable home systems. So that's kind of like a big way of saying I help parents figure out what they need help with and then find the right people to help them. And it's so much fun and it's so fulfilling and I love it. I'm excited to dive deeper.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
And let me ask you this, Kelly. So the mental load, I think most moms listening have completely know what that is. But if you're somebody who maybe not a mom or aren't really aware of how big your mental load is, talk to us about mental loads. What does that mean? How did you figure yours out?
Yeah, well, I think the easiest way to define sort of mental load is all of the invisible labor that we are doing to sort of keep the machines running, keep everybody happy and healthy and thriving in our household. So that includes a lot of mental labor, like remembering all that we have to make all of the appointments, remembering that our kid has certain preferences, It's also a lot of emotional labor. It's knowing how to regulate our own emotions, our kids' emotions. And then I think the other part of just in general, the load that busy parents carry is there's a lot of physical load. And that is, things that like making sure the laundry gets done, that the dishwasher is running, all of those things that we're doing to sort of maintain and manage our household. I think that's kind of how I would break it up. But for me personally, in my sort of journey postpartum, I feel like I was able to kind of like hold it together, if you will, until I had our second. So like with my first, I went into parenthood with a lot of gusto and a lot of, I'm going to do it all. I'm going to be a career mom. And, that didn't last very long because once baby number two came along, everything sort of started, the wheels started to fall off. And so what I did, if we're talking about like mental load and mental labor, is what I did is I started making a list of all of the things that I was doing to manage our household on top of my full-time job working. So I was spending, when I started adding it all up, I was spending upwards of 22 hours a week on all of the things to manage our household. And I showed my husband and I said, this is no longer sustainable for me to do. I need more
Mhm.
help. And so we need to go figure out a way to find more support system. And so that's kind of what we did. That's what led me, my own experience in finding that village and finding that support system is what now has led me to Sage House, because it was so life-changing for me and my family that now I am sort of teaching that same method of hiring the right person and developing better systems to help your household run more smoothly to other parents. So it's kind of been this like evolution. Like my own experience has just, made me really passionate about helping others sort of like find that relief.
Yeah. What did you find once you when you had the help come in and you kind of got the village and everything started running, what did you and your husband notice was different? Like what were you more available for, or what were you more present for, like literally physically or just kind of mentally and emotionally?
Literally everything in my life. Like, I mean, when I say this was life changing, I'm not saying that like this is not a marketing scheme. Like, I felt like the more I was able to delegate and get things out of my brain and know that I could really trust and rely on someone else to help me and get things done, it opened up like so much more capacity for me to be more present with my kids instead of running through my to-do list. Like when I was playing with them, I was playing with them and I wasn't just worried about my grocery list, because I knew that my staple groceries were going to be in the fridge. And so I was able to be more present with my partner because, as many of us know, like the hours in the day are so limited, minutes in the day are so limited, especially to like reconnect with your partner at the end of the day and just keep that going. So I felt like that changed. And then, this sounds funny, but like I suddenly had more capacity for like my career and where did I want to go with it? And like really thinking through like what was important for me and how was I prioritizing my life. And that's actually what led me to Sage House. It's like because I suddenly got this like bandwidth back, I was able to really think like, what do I want to do with my time and my life and my energy? And so anyway, I think everything like it, offloading just gains you so much more just like perspective and time and mental space and clarity to spend on other things.
That makes so much sense. And our moms, as you know, a lot of them are postpartum, are struggling with depression, anxiety, or maybe just overwhelm of motherhood. And I can imagine how mentally that would be relaxing or de-stressing to be able to take some of that mental workload off of yourself and actually be able to focus either on healing or your child. Let me ask this because I'm not good at asking for help. So, Kelly, when you decided I have this massive spreadsheet, this list that you talked to your husband, how did you then go and figure out how to get someone to help you? You've mentioned home systems. What is that process like?
Yeah. So So one of the things, great question. It's that leap that I feel like is what,
Mhm.
why Sage House exists and why I
Mhm.
help. And so making the leap from, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed and I'm doing all these things, to handing them off to the right person in the right way and trusting that someone will do it how we want it done. And like that whole asking for
Yes.
help. So a couple things. One, I would say, like, the first step in when I work with either one-on-one clients, because I do that too. I sometimes work with one-on-one clients to help them find a house manager, or the women who come into my small group cohorts. The first thing we do is make the invisible visible. So we do that sort of like audit of time, like what
Mhm.
are all of the things that you're doing in your home today, and take like all of the things you're doing to take care of your kids and your family today, so that you can see and like really visualize, wow, I'm doing so much and I need to go from this to, and then another exercise we do is thinking about like, what is our ideal day, week look like? Because then you
Mhm.
see the difference. Like, this is what I'm doing now. This is what I want to be doing now. And that exercise allows you to see what are the things I need to get off my plate. And from there, it's really like, it's more logistical in the Sage House hiring method that I teach, which is more like, okay, now that I can pick these sort of top 5 things that I know I really need help with and I want to delegate, how long do those tasks take me? Is it 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week? How does that fit in with my budget? How can I now think about, an hourly rate that I could pay someone to help me with these things? And like, what kind of value does that bring back to my life? And then it's sort
Yeah.
of thinking, and then it's like, I could talk more about like logistics, which is included in like, on my digital course in my cohort, I have templates for all the things like job descriptions, interview questions, the right things to ask people. When you call
Wow.
references, what are those things? Like an attorney drafted employment agreement, like all of the sort of stuff
Yeah.
of the process. But I really think what it comes down to is like figuring out when you need help with. I guess, Kelly, one other thing that I'll say is I think a lot of us are really scared and afraid of asking for help. I think, up until this point, society has told us we should be able to do it all. We can
Mhm.
have it all. We can
Mhm.
have a career and a
Yes.
family, and
Yeah.
and it's a big lie. It's a big lie because we can't do it without help.
Yeah.
And so I think
Yeah.
what I would say is it's hard to ask for help, but like, it is so freeing when you can and finally ask for help. And I think what I'm seeing is so many
Yeah.
moms are finally ditching the supermom narrative. They're ditching the do it all narrative. And they're realizing that it's just more beneficial for themselves, for their family, and their health and well being
Mhm.
when they can ask for help. So,
Mhm.
Yeah. No, and I feel like too, it's one of those, it's also such a wonderful lesson because as most moms also know, there's always this period sometimes when you're, especially when your baby is really young and little, and you're the only person who can change the diaper the right way, who can feed them the right way, who can calm them down, who can get them to go to sleep, who can, and we start getting these stories sometimes of like, I'm the only person who can do this. And if someone else does it, the whole world's going to end. And that kind of all or nothing thinking, especially when you have anxiety. And this is such a wonderful lesson and a practice too. I mean, this would be great if moms could start doing something like this while they were pregnant. This practice of like, if you're careful and intentional about who you're bringing into your life and making a part of your village, you can trust that they're going to do the job, right? No matter what that job is. And because I hear from moms all the time, like, well, I'm worried about the babysitter, or I don't know if I can do it, or I don't know if they're going to do it the right way. And even with couples, it's like this constant back and forth of like, who is, being able to trust another person to do it. So I love that that's built in for you, is like how to interview and how to ask questions and make sure that you're getting exactly who you need for your
yes.
family.
Yeah, Ashley, I
Yeah.
think you bring up a couple really interesting points. One is, um, we have our own barriers to letting things go and trusting that someone will do it our way and the way that we want it done.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting because in our own personal life, we create that own barrier for ourselves, but in the workforce, in our careers, in our, in our office environment as managers, we're really good at delegating. We're really good at
Yeah.
saying, this is how I want something done. This is how I'm
Yeah.
going to coach you on, and if you have a better way of doing it, I'm open to it. But like, it's really interesting how, like, if we start to apply the principles that we've learned in sort of like our careers to our home,
Mhm.
we can then sort of
Yeah.
debunk these myths that like someone can't, wash our jeans on cold inside out the same way we do, because they can.
Yeah.
Actually, they can. And then the other thing that you touched on, which is interesting, is partner collaboration, and like being able to
Mhm.
rely on your partner and work together as a team in these really insane seasons of life. I think,
Yeah.
one sort of terminology that I feel like I'm getting away from, but it's still this like hot, you know, verbiage that we're using is division of labor. Like, oh, division of labor, this, division of labor, this. Sometimes I feel like the term division of labor feels really divisive. Okay. So what I
Mhm.
like to use instead, like with my cohort and like women that I work with, is partner collaboration. Like, you guys aren't like dividing, like you do this, I do this, you do this. It's like we're collaborating together to figure out, what do we both really need? What do we need help with? Like, how are we like working together? It's not always 50-50. Life isn't that way. And so I think what it comes down to is like being able to trust your partner, setting up expectations for each other that are like reasonable, that you can like continually work on, so that, you don't feel like you're in it alone. To your point, like, you don't feel like you're telling yourself this story. Oh, it's all me. If it's not me, then it won't get done, and so all of that. So yeah.
Yeah. I know the partner piece is so important too, because I mean, even then, like the work that you do with, women or families and however they come to you, I mean, that kind of stuff and the way you communicate about it bleeds over into everything else, because that is one of the number one. I mean, when Kelly and I have talked with people in my own practice, like one of the biggest things, especially with families that have young kids, is the resentment that parents feel towards the
Mhm.
other one because things don't feel fair,
Mhm.
or one person feels like they are doing so much more. And it always comes back down to like recognizing the visible versus invisible, load that each person carries, because it does tend to skew in very typical ways. and, and so it's so important that people are able to communicate about that. Because it'll improve your marriage too, guys, just by the way.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. I think it's all about sort of, being explicit with your partner, and then, yeah, setting up expectations that are realistic. And what I love about, finding your village and relying on other people to support you is you're no longer like pushing things, like I said, dividing, like pushing things onto each other's plates. It's like, how about we make a third plate? And how about
Yeah.
we both sort of
Yeah.
put things onto this other plate, and sort of like
Yeah.
find relief. And I mean, seriously, it changed my marriage to no longer be sort of like doing that scorekeeping and being like,
Hmm.
low key resentful all the time about all of the things that I was doing, because yeah. So I agree.
So, Kelly, let me ask this. So, we talked first about one of your first steps is to make a list of all the different things that you are doing physically, emotionally, mentally of the invisible workload. Let's say there's a mom listening who's like, you're right. I need to outsource. I need to hire that village. What tips do you have for somebody of even where to start? Like, where have you lessons learned of places that moms should look or should or shouldn't do if they decide to get help for their village?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is, don't start making a checklist by yourself, because I've done all of that hard work for you and I have like a good starting place for you. So on my website, if you go to mysagehouse.com, you can take a 8-question quiz. Like, will take you less than 2 minutes. And by answering the questions, it will create a dashboard that shows you how much time you're probably spending managing your household today, and it will suggest to you roles to consider hiring based on that, the answers to the question. It will also give you that big long checklist that I created, that's honestly pretty holistic of all of the things I was doing to manage my household. And then you can take it from there and like, and if best place to start, go do that. And like literally print the checklist out if that helps you and take it to your partner. Start having the conversation. Just have a conversation with your partner. Hey, these are all the things I'm doing managing my household, our household. These are all of the things that like feel really invisible that I'm trying to make more visible so that we can start talking about. And by the way, is there anything you would add to this list? What are the things you're doing that are invisible that I'm not seeing that, you know, you're feeling underappreciated for, or you're feeling like overwhelmed by? And how do we now come together and think, what is it? Are we valuing our time right now? Like, how wild is this season of life that we're in, where we're just sort of like, you know, surviving instead of thriving?
Yeah.
And like, how can we maybe think about more help, or finding our village or support system, or getting creative to work within our budget of like, is there a mother's helper in our neighborhood who could help us? Is there like a kid who wants to walk our dog a couple times a day because that would buy us an hour back of time? Do we already have cleaners who could come in and help fold laundry? So I think it's like, start there. Like, don't go it alone. I can help you. I think there's a lot of fantastic resources, you know, out there. But yeah, I'm here to help.
And one thing, so while you guys are listening, if you'll look in the show notes, we will include that direct link for Kelly's quiz. So just go right in the show notes and you can go right there and take it.
Yeah. I'm going to go do it after this.
Yeah.
Oh man. Do you find with like, is there the families and like people that you're working with, is it lots of young kids, people with teenagers? Like, what is that?
It's all across the board, because no matter what season of life you're in, it's all crazy. It's all because those of us with young kids and like toddlers, it's really physical. I feel like it's really like, you know, it's very hands. It's
Yes.
like you're getting them dressed, you're bathing, you know, it's like a lot of
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And then as there, you know, a lot of women in my cohort who also have kids who are sort of like preteen, teen, adolescent. And those moms are like, I need so much help in my household because I'm out of the house all day running kids around. They're like, I'm a taxi driver, you know, and they want to be doing that, by the way. Like they want to go to their kids' soccer games and basketball games and volunteer at school and like do all of that. And so they need more help in their household with like all that other stuff. And then I feel like the other thing is, you know, parents of any age, child, like there are, you know, different times where kids might have like increased medical needs or like emotional needs, and having more, like we talked about, like space and capacity to like meet emotional needs. It's all intertwined. Like if you can not do like the laundry and the grocery shopping, and like that is no longer like sort of taking over your brain, like you have more space for compassion and like empathy and meeting your kids where they're at. And so I would say, like, honestly, all ages, runs the gamut.
Yeah. Wow.
What else should we ask from tips? What have we not brought up, Kelly, that you think a mom or dad who's kind of struggling right now listening should know?
Oh gosh. You know, I think, you know, I get a lot of questions from parents who think that this all sounds way too good to be true. They're like, this is
Okay.
so, and so they sort of like, they come to me with like these barriers of like, well, I would hire someone or I would find my village, but and they're like, I'm sure nobody wants a job that's like 8 to 10 hours a week, or I'm sure there's nobody out there who would, you know, be good for this role or whatever it is. And the thing that I tell people is that's absolutely not the case. Like, there are so many wonderful people who love working with families, who want to have like really, you know, well-paying jobs, who want to work part-time because they're starting a business, they're a freelancer, they're a consultant, they're a student. And so I think like that's one of the questions I get a lot of the time. So I think just know that like there are people out there that are incredible and they exist and they want to help you. And then I'm just thinking, what else? Yeah, I think, you know, I think I mentioned this, but I just really feel like we're at a big turning point in our sort of like society and culture, and that moms are saying, finally putting their foot down, and they're saying like, this isn't healthy for me to do it all. And I love that. And I really feel like we're going to see, you know, we are going to model something very different for our children. than what was modeled to us. And I think that generally that is a very
Yeah.
positive thing.
Yeah. No, it definitely is.
Because, yeah, you said at the beginning, there's only so many hours a day. And as a mom, these moments are fleeting. You want to spend time with your partner, you want to spend time with your kids. It's the laundry and everything else that you need to do to make your life run. If you could get that away and be more present,
Mm-hmm.
it's just an amazing opportunity for so many
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah. I have a friend who she likes to describe the kind of your capacity cup. And just thinking about it is like, you can't always, sometimes we can make it stretch, right? Like just a little bit, but it's not this infinite space that can just grow and grow and grow to hold everything and everyone and all the feelings and jobs and everything like that. And so it's like, if your cup is getting filled up every day by like certain tasks or certain things, you aren't going to have the capacity to, like, I guess, kind of gently, or the way you want to handle like big toddler emotions, right? Or big teenager emotions. You're not going to have the capacity to respond to that in the way that you want to, because you're already full. Like there's
Yep.
nowhere else for it to go. And so, yeah, I mean, coming up, thinking about ways and exploring like all options for people in terms of trying to regain that balance and have that conversation within your family, and is huge, because it just affects the whole family dynamic. It's so important.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Kelly, this has been so great. I'm really excited to go take the quiz and see the workload that we have that we don't realize in our household as well. So tell everybody listening, if we'll have a link to the quiz, but if they want to know more about what you do or how to get in touch with you, let them know how to find you.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at my Sage Haus. House is spelled Haus. I'm also on LinkedIn, Kelly Hubbell. And I would say another really good place to start, just to sort of get to know me and some of the solutions that I can help offer, is I have a 5-day free program that you can find through my Stan store on Instagram. And that's sort of like a starter course, if you will. And then if you are interested in going deeper and doing a 6-week cohort, we meet for 1 hour a week. That is kicking off. I'm in one right now, but the next one's kicking off in February of 2025. Would love to get you in there. And then if you are like, Kelly, I just want you to find and hire my unicorn for me, give me a call. DM me, reach out. I'm happy to help. So I think that's everything.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This has been, I'm so excited to go and explore more. I love all the creative ways that moms are like solving the problems of the universe. It's just fascinating. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That was such a great conversation. I think I learned a lot. And I'm not going to lie, I really can't wait to go take her quiz, because even for myself, trying to think of all the things that I do, and I'm sure that my husband does as well, it's a never ending ongoing list of birthdays and appointments and what food does my daughter refuse to eat today. It never ends.
Yeah, I know. And I'm very curious too about some of the templates and like, things that she's already created in there that families can use to help kind of guide that conversation, because I mean, this is something we hear so often from new moms, and especially moms that are like struggling with mental health concerns like after having a baby, is this whole, you know, the who's going to do this, or I feel like I'm doing everything, and not being able to communicate with your partner on who's going to do what and how we're going to do things in a way that everyone is feeling happy, right? Like you don't want to get through every day and just being like, oh God, oh, we got everything's
Yes.
done. Okay. Right. Like that's not what you want.
And regardless, I feel like being a new mom, that's how you feel anyways. If you can take some of the extra stuff off on top of that, that has to help give you more time to focus on your child and your well-being.
No, definitely. And I mean, that's one of the first things that when I'm working with a new mom that's coming in and who's really struggling is like, there are certain things we really have to focus on. Your sleep, right? And to
Mhm.
get sleep, sometimes with a newborn, like you have to ask for help, because there's no other way it's going to happen. But focusing on the things that you need to feel your best, whether that's physical recovery, recovering from postpartum depression or anxiety, or just kind of recovering from those initial couple of months as being a new mom, You've got to be able to focus on the things that you need. But at the same time, though, not feeling like maybe everything else around you was falling apart, you know?
Yeah. And I think when you're over, at least from my perspective, so I take back mine, I was overwhelmed by so much at the beginning that it would have been hard for me to say, here's what I need today, because that list is back there. But the fact that she has something you can start with to say, here's what you're dealing with. How much time does this take you? For me, that would also make it easier for ask for help from a partner or from someone that may come into my house to help me, because I can show you this takes this amount of hours versus me just saying like, I feel overwhelmed. And a lot of times I get stuck in the I feel overwhelmed, not the how to actually write it down and quantify it, which is key to fixing it.
Yeah. No, I know. Well, and it goes back to, it's kind of like with the mental health plan that we have for
Yes,
pregnant moms, is going through and thinking about some of those tasks that you want help with, right? Like a lot of new moms, again, like you don't necessarily want someone to sit there and hold the baby for 30 minutes. You would rather that they fold the laundry or that they wash the dishes or
exactly.
do some of the things that you're like, I don't want to spend my time doing that right now. Like I want to spend my time doing these things. And so being able just to kind of have these different ways of coming up with what that list is, how to talk to people about it is really important.
It is. And I love that she brought it up that there seems to be this shift in all of us. And I feel it. And maybe it's just where we are right now or where I'm right now. But I do think we were kind of taught like generations ago, women tend to be more stay-at-home moms and did everything. But then there was a jump to the workforce. And it's hard to feel like you have to do everything in both because it's not feasible. And so finally being able to say, I'm not Superwoman. No person is. How do I want to spend the time that I have? How do I reprioritize what I'm doing? Because one person can't do everything. And I think a lot of times we expect ourselves to because of what we've been kind of taught through society. I love that this shift is happening.
Yeah, I know. I do too. It's really great.
It is. So if you're a mom and you're out there listening, think through your mental load, all the things that are keeping you busy, whether you see it or not, kind of thinking through those things and looking at ideas of how do you talk to your support person, your partner? How do you find a village if you need additional help? Because again, the more we can take care of you, the better that capacity you have to take care of yourself and your child.
Yep.
And how do we make it as easy for you as possible?
Yeah, I know. I love that. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next week.
If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please be sure to hit subscribe, leave us your feedback, and give us a 5-star review. For even more support, visit us at wethrivepostpartum.com/podcast to sign up for our newsletter and learn more about our community. Remember, you are not alone. With support, you can feel better. Together, let's thrive postpartum.